We were very keen to make the film in Germany. It's a German story, it's a very famous German story, it's a very famous German book, and we wanted to do it obviously where it was set. So we decamped to Berlin really for 2 years.
I met Stephen. Stephen must have traced me down through my agent. And I think it was love on the first sight. We immediately felt we could grasp this project emotional depth-wise.
We were very aware that authenticity was going to be absolutely crucial. I'm an English filmmaker, I'm not German. Brigitte is German. It's written by a German. And I needed to make sure that, as an outsider, if you like, to that culture, telling one of their most important stories, I was accurate in, not just in terms of every single little production detail, but in the general sweep of what I was attempting to do.
I read the book before I met Stephen because I knew I was going to meet him. And I was tremendously touched. It's a subject that actually made me run away from Germany. I went to live in Mexico 40 years ago. I'm that generation that I'm the writer's generation, Schlink. So we were all very angry with our parents and with the silence about what had happened during the war.
I asked her to come back to Germany, which would be the first time she'd ever been back to Germany since she'd emigrated in the 60s. And so she agreed. And for her, I think it was a very challenging subject matter, very challenging personally for her, given her own history. I
ran away from what was hidden in Germany, but I also was very fearful to look at it myself. And through the book, I had to do research, of course, about the Holocaust and see pictures and see videos. And it's actually the first time that I dared to really personally confront myself with it and say, okay, enough with fear, enough with guilt. I have to face it.
And we started the process of trying to define the town, the context, the world of Hannah, the world of Michael, and then it'd be this extraordinarily difficult subject of these German trials of German citizens by Germans.
First of all, Stephen is the most adorable person I've met in a long time. He has such charisma and charm that you just forget the hardship he puts you through. He is so full of creativity and energy, it just touches everybody. Despite the tiredness that by now we feel and the weariness of, could we have a little rest? No.
Obviously, Germany's changing very fast, and the difficulty is now finding places in Germany that look remotely as Germany did in the 1950s.
We weren't looking for a town that had been ravaged by the RAF particularly. So we were looking for a town that was basically intact but hadn't been fully restored, and we found it in a town called Görlitz, which is in the old east, just on the Polish border.
We shot in a city that fortunately still had a few houses, but Germany is going so fast in renovating what was once the GDR that it was really hard to find longer stretches. So we had to hide the brightly new painted houses.
I mean, we would go 1 week and say, yes, this is an absolutely perfect fall-down 50s street. And we'd go back a month later, it would have been re-tarmacked, resurfaced, there'd be advertising hoardings, the street had completely changed.
What I had to think about, of course, that every period is correctly presented, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. It was also going into the psychology always of people, what was the spirit end of the 50s? What were we going to try to represent at the beginning of this film? And that was Germany still not yet reconstructed. Germany still suffering from the effects of the post-war.
I was very keen to get the idea that the country was being rebuilt, both in terms of the so-called German miracle, which happened with the arrival of the Marshall Plan in the 50s, and the huge, profound amount of resources that were made available to the federal government by the Americans, meant that the country went through this phenomenal transformation.
The 50s are gloomier colors, burned colors, which I've tried to portray in her room in the Berg apartment. And then in the 60s, we tried to represent the new Germany, the reconstruction, the positive attitude. Oh, we're making it. Oh, we're back again.
All right. The sort of middle act of the film is set in a trial, and we decided to base our trial on the Auschwitz trial in Frankfurt of 1963. It's a very well-documented trial, and because it was the first. We had legal experts and a prosecutor from that trial come and work with us actually on a day-to-day basis.
We're all trying to achieve something that hopefully is a good film, but also looks real, looks very, very real, and not like some sort of period-y drama that we've seen before. We're really trying to make it look different.
The guilt is there. I think it will always stay with me. But I think I broke my own barriers. And it was very hard emotionally for me. But it was very good. It was like diving into the depths and somehow coming out again. And I'm really grateful that I was invited to this project.